The president's speed has always been this fast. It has always been, I need this, let's go, let's go, let's go. So during transition, it was, let's get every single campaign promises. Let's make sure that they're all covered on day one. Everything that he said he was going to do on day one, we're going to do on day one. We're not just saying things. The president can say a lot of things from the Oval, and Stephen and I then are following up, and we're saying, where is this action? The president's pace has stayed the same, but everyone else has caught up to it.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Signal Sitdown, but before we get to the interview, we'd love it if you'd hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you may be joining us. And please remember to give us a 5-star review because we love your feedback. Remember, it's your government, and together we'll expose how it really works and how to affect real change. Without further ado, here's the interview. Mailman, welcome to the Signal Sitdown.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Now, you are a deputy assistant to the president and a senior policy strategist at the White House.
Yes.
How did you get to where you are?
So I was here day one to the last day during Trump 1.0 in multiple offices that people have never heard of, some of them, staff secretary, chief of staff's office, White House counsel's office. And to be honest, I said I was, 4 years in Trump White House is like, very long.
It's an eternity.
It's a very long time. So I said, you got to get some fresh blood in there. People who haven't done it before, people who are just like raring to go. And so I wasn't going to do it. But then I worked on transition, and there was so much momentum. It just had a different feel. It was so active. It just felt like all the unfinished business and all the past 4 years. So how could you not? And so here we are.
Yeah, as soon as I think I'm out, they pull me back in, as they say. The momentum you mentioned on the transition. Well, that momentum was seen in the first 100 days so far, for sure. This executive is moving vigorously. President Trump is issuing a historic number of executive orders. He is working at a breakneck pace to, put an end to these wars in Ukraine and in the Middle East. He's making sure that American trade is respected, American industry is respected around the world. Take us inside the strategy of this, as some people are calling it, a blitzkrieg, moving at such a rapid pace, trying to get the policy objectives done.
Yeah, so I think actually the president's speed has always been this fast. It has always been, I need this, let's go, let's go, let's go. And the difference is now, well, one, Stephen Miller is my boss, and so he's the Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy. There never was a Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy last time, and so to have a central coordinating body of let's go, let's go, let's go with somebody with the energy of Stephen, I think helps push things along. So during transition, it was let's get every single campaign promises. Let's make sure that they're all covered on day one. Everything that he said he was going to do on day one, we're going to do on day one. So there was just that capturing of promises and making sure that that was executed. Also, I think we were able to do so much on day one that actually some of the things that can slow you down, like a lawsuit or whatever, people just can't keep up. I mean, if you just keep executing, and some of it's not even on, now that the executive orders are signed, the agencies are just doing it. So yeah, we did sign an executive order to end anti-Semitism, but now that task force is set up and they're just doing it. So that's the other difference, really, is that we're not just saying things. The president can say a lot of things from the Oval, and Stephen and I then are following up, and we're saying, where is this action? What is happening? Like, the LNG permits need to be issued. What's happening on the border? How's our relationship with this country and this country? And how many flights have we had? So it is a constant conversation with the agencies who are eager to execute the president's agenda. And so it's like everybody working. The president's pace has stayed the same, but everyone else has caught up to it.
Everyone else has caught up. And I can't help but notice a major difference is the number of personnel that you guys had going in on day one and the number of hires that you guys have had since. You guys went in with that beachhead into not only the White House, but into all these different agencies. I think a big question for some people on the right was, while there was some personnel concerns in the first administration, has Trump, gotten up to speed on this type of thing? The message for anyone who doubted that, I think, in the first 70 days of this administration has been, yes, we are going in with the personnel necessary. Talk about that personnel effort, why that beachhead was so important.
Yeah, so I think it's the type and not the number. To be honest, we can always use more politicals, and we are still getting people through the door. So Congress still we're waiting on our deputy secretaries. We just got our FDA nominee. Maha is a central promise, and we just got our FDA person in the door yesterday, 2 days ago. So Marty McCary, and so a lot of these still department leads we're still waiting for, and so I think actually the speed has not even been what it's going to be, because we are still working with careers in a lot of places. We're working with a lot of limited staff. So what you're seeing actually is probably at 20% of where we want to be staff-wise. So the numbers are continuing to grow, and I think the execution is going to continue to grow. But I will say the type of person matters a lot. So when you're the one person in the FDA trying to manage, and it really matters who you are. And so I think what you're seeing with personnel this time is people who they're oriented toward action. And so a lot of people are oriented towards process. They're oriented toward contemplation. They're oriented toward, a lot of other things. But these people, they want to get things done. And so that's a type of thing that when people are coming to us, they're assessing for that. Are you
right.
The type of person?
Are you frenetic?
Yes,
right.
exactly.
Are you kinetic? Are you willing to go to war or go to bat for this president?
So that type of person is being prioritized, and I think that matters a lot.
Yeah, and one of the stupid dichotomies I think the mainstream media has tried to drive in this, personnel ramp up in the vigorous first 100 days of this administration is, well, they're prioritizing loyalty over competence. I think it's a completely false dichotomy, because to be competent working under a Trump administration, you need to be loyal to the president and loyal to his worldview. You need to have that similarity to the president. I mean, that it seems like a crucially important piece of this, is to not only know where the levers of power are and pull them, but to share that worldview.
Yeah, so it's not enough to be loyal, but it obviously is necessary, right? So you as an individual staffer are not the president. Nobody nobody voted for you. All of your authority.
I would vote for you, but I didn't vote for you.
Thank you. But any reason that you are here is to execute the president's agenda. And there are a lot of people for whom they just can't. There's issues, and they're not even bad people, but they're not staffers. They are advocates. There's certain thing that they want. Good for you. Go on the outside and advocate for whatever you want, and give your ideas to the White House and be you. But a staffer recognizes that we are here to execute the president's agenda. That is your job, and you should do it smart, and you should do it right, and you should ask questions, and you should do it in a way that's not idiotic. But your job is to execute, and so that's the type of person. And so it's not a loyalty test. It's a do you know why you're here test. But it's not enough. That's not enough. You also have to be very high performing, very competent. And so it's tough to get in the door.
Yeah.
And so that's why I said, the people who are here there are a lot of people in the agencies. I feel bad for them. I mean, they are dealing with a lot.
Let's talk about those advocates really quickly. I mean, I think people are finding out for the first time with all these lawsuits launched against the administration that not only do the deep state have a lot of personnel, but they also have unions, and they're going after the administration. The Judiciary, activist groups going to the courts for redress, for President Trump's efforts to downsize the federal government. 130 plus lawsuits now. How do you guys approach that type of deluge? I mean, I know that all of you guys were aware that lawfare was not going to go away when President Trump came into the Oval Office. It was just going to change form, and I think this is the latest form of it.
Yeah, so what's so nefarious is obviously there must be a court system in order for our country to survive. We need law and order, we need our courts, and everybody appreciates that. except for maybe these judges. Because what the judges are doing is they are going so far outside their judicial power, and they are telling people what emails they need to send. They're saying what our military needs to look like. They're saying what our flight plans should be. They're saying, who can actually be part of agencies. These are really core executive decisions. And when judges pop in and make those, what they're actually doing is they're informing the public, wow, these judges are really going well outside their judicial power. And when people lose trust in the judiciary, and when they no longer think that judges are good actors, they see them as partisan, and they don't trust the rulings, like, this ruling is not really your job, then they are forever harming the integrity of law and order in this country. So I will say that the lawfare has been alarming. It's not the pace. The number, I think, is probably to be expected. Everybody loves to fundraise off of this. It's like they have no platform.
Even if they don't even have any standing, they'll file a lawsuit anyway.
The only thing they're going to do is file a lawsuit and then be like to their donors, look at what we did. So, okay, fine. There's a lot of numbers. The problem is what happens next. And if these judges, then if the Supreme Court continues to allow nationwide injunctions, which is before any trial, before any evidence, before any final legal determination of just like, woke up, kind of read the briefs, nationwide injunction, you haven't had any thought process into this. If that is allowed to stand, I think it will forever harm the standing of the judiciary in the minds of the American public.
And let's talk about, there's going to be some congressional assistance coming as well. There's a menu of policy options to bring this judiciary to heel. The president can't just do it himself, sadly. They need to have some sort of potential legislation, maybe impeachment. We've talked about hearings with Jim Jordan, bringing in some of these rogue judges. As you see these policy options, impeachment, legislation that reins in their ability to issue injunctions, and this fact-finding hearing process, what do you guys favor? What do you think is most useful to serve the American people's ends?
Yeah, so impeachment is certainly a tool in the sense that it's the only tool the American people have, right? You've got judges that they're not elected. There's no other way to hold a judge into account or to know what's going on besides impeachment. It's like, in a sense, it's the only tool you've got. But on the other hand, there needs to be structural changes. And that's, I think, what I'm focused a little bit more on.
This is the policy strategy part of this.
Yes, which is the Constitution establishes the Supreme Court, but it does not establish any lower courts. That is up to Congress. And so it is the role of Congress to identify what the lower courts actually look like, what their jurisdiction is. And so if Congress sees that their own laws, so the founders thought that the branches would be fighting with each other for power.
Madison says, or is it Madison or Hamilton? Pit ambition against ambition.
Exactly. Right. And so you've got the legislature seeing their laws just get totally shredded by the judiciary. They're like, Alien Enemies Act, never heard of her. Well, you are the legislature. Your laws are not being complied with. This is up to you. And so I think that the legislature, it is catastrophic for them to not act and to let individual judges nullify laws nationwide in a preliminary posture, and they need to carve back this power if they care at all about their own power. But the thing is, we've changed into a world where the Democrats are like, I like the outcome, so that's fine. That's not what our founders thought. Our founders thought that they would like the legislature more so than they would like their partisanship. And so I think the legislature kind of needs to think about that. As an institution, do we care about the people? Because that's who's actually losing, is the people. When judges take over, who loses? The people. So the legislature needs to kind of take that power back.
Absolutely. And one of the, I think, interesting pieces that came out this week from the White House is this executive order on election integrity. We were just talking about this administration understanding those dynamics between the executive, as vigorous as he's acting, and the responsibilities of the legislature. Of course, this executive order acknowledges that the executive is going to enforce the laws on the books to ensure the integrity of our elections, but a lot of that power sometimes resides statutorily for the federal government, of course, in the legislature, and then, of course, the process, procedure, etc., for the states. I thought it was a masterful document what should we expect to see from the Trump White House in ensuring integrity for our elections, and which ways are you kind of pushing on? Are you pushing on states more? Are you pushing on the legislature to do more to shore up our elections? Because Wyoming, I didn't realize this, they just signed this piece of legislation. Now they're the only state in the union that requires proof of citizenship to vote in any election. How is that not the law everywhere, right?
How is it not? Yeah. So I think that this executive order, thank you for calling it masterful.
I was very happy when I read it.
All these executive orders are labors of love. A lot of work goes into them, and it's not done when it's signed. In fact, the work begins when it's signed. So I will say a couple of big things that we'll really be pushing on. One is that we do expect the Election Assistance Commission to require that for that federal form, that people show documentary proof of citizenship. Now, this is for federal elections, but what we think is that states usually just have the same sign-up form for federal as they do state, and so it'll take active work for states to be like, no, I want to have really insecure state elections. Mm-hmm. So hopefully by changing things at the federal level, that you'll actually bring the states along to have secure elections on all their voter rolls. Because they don't want to have multiple different types of voter rolls. Two, I think this election day concept. So by statute, there is an election day. And so for states that are accepting ballots 10 days indefinitely after, if they were just not postmarked or if they were postmarked by election day, no. We're a first world country. We're going to end our elections on election day as the law requires, and we're going to have a clear winner. We're not going to make America California. And then I think the third thing is the way that elections are run. So having clear chain of custody, having people be able to see on their ballot what they voted for, not some barcode. I don't know what that is. I want to be able to see what I voted for. And so when I put it into whatever machine, that I can trust that. And then we want to have a lot of checks on those machines. We want to know about secure internet connections, these types of things. And so there are guidelines that come from the Election Assistance Commission. Also, the Obama administration designated election equipment as critical infrastructure. The federal government has a large role in critical infrastructure. So there's a lot of levers, but I think that those are the big pieces: citizenship, election day, and then the sort of machinery.
Mm-hmm. And if we can't restore the first world country status, I think we go full third world. I think we go Indonesia with the nails marking on their wooden planks. That's how they do it in Indonesia. I'm not making it up. Look it up. That's what we have to do. Everyone's going to have a wooden plank to vote on. The other big question, right, what the legislature's going to help this administration with is budget reconciliation. Right now, there is a negotiation between the House and the Senate on the budget resolution. We talk a lot about that on this show in particular. But from the administration's perspective, obviously their big goal right now is to undo the damage done by the Biden administration with respect to the border and illegal immigration. What does this White House need from Congress in that budget reconciliation package to make sure that we're ramping up deportations and to undo this damage that was done by the Biden administration?
Yeah, so obviously we want to start seeing our budget be responsible in the sense that we cannot continue to run $1.5 to $2 trillion deficits each year. But that does not mean that we don't want to spend money on things that are necessary for the federal government to be spending money on, which is national security and border security.
Right. So right now, for folks at home, the Senate is providing $350 billion to immigration enforcement in their resolution. The House, about $200 billion. I mean, what can we do with that type of money to ramp those up?
So there's a lot of critical needs, obviously personnel, having the type of people that can process, but I think bed space. So if you come into this country and, like the Biden administration, there's no place to put you and you are released, the likelihood that you're going to be eventually deported, I think in the Biden administration it was something like maybe 3% of those people were deported. So having a place to detain people is critical. Of course, it's not enough, right? We actually need changes to the law in order to make sure that children and other, that can all be detained together, can be held for a long enough time in order to...
We're talking about Flores right now.
Yes, exactly. So there are legal changes, but also then the infrastructure, so improving our border wall system, our surveillance, drones, things like that, having our military continue to be able to support, continue with diplomatic assistance. So things like El Salvador, we would like to continue our relationship with them and being able to have flights. So there are things, that are critical to our foreign relations. So it's a full-scale effort, but if I were to have my wish list of the thing that I would want, it is a sufficient space to detain, and that is what I hope that a lot of this money is going to be able to be used for.
Beyond that, of course, the big question, the big fight, it's not going to be over the border because everyone knows in Congress there's this giant anvil hanging over their head, which is you better fix the darn border. Tax cuts, that's a different thing, though. We've heard numbers like $3.8 trillion in tax cuts, $4.5 trillion in tax cuts. Depending on the budget guy you talk to, some people are saying almost as much as $6 trillion worth of tax cuts within that 10-year budget resolution window. What does President Trump want to see done on the tax front?
So he wants to see Americans be able to prosper in this country and be able to build wealth, right? That if you work, that's your money. So tax cuts are a huge priority to unleash the American economy. And at the same time, with tariffs, in order to bring companies into this country, in order to incentivize having income in this country, it requires tax cuts. You can have all the tariffs, but you have to have a deregulatory agenda. You have to have low taxes in order to spur income, innovation, businesses in this country.
You're changing the revenue mechanism, right? So what you're doing is you're taking foreign companies or foreign actors, you're collecting revenue from them instead of having tax rates on American businesses and American work.
Exactly. You want to prioritize American innovation. What a concept. So the way that this exactly looks like, the rates and all that are still going to be worked out. But I will say, in general, it needs to be substantially robust in order to jumpstart American innovation and jumpstart companies wanting to reshore. There has to be a corporate element to this. But Americans deserve and want the benefit of their own labor.
When you look at this administration and the amount of pressure that's being applied by the media, even some media on the quote-unquote center-right that wants to see this administration fail. I mean, what type of sense of urgency does that create for you guys? Is this a haters gonna hate, we're the underdogs, that's fine, we're gonna plow ahead, or is there a we need to move in silence and in caution in some respects?
So I think for the first time ever, people are taking the administration very seriously in the budget that we are proposing, in when the Congress sends us what their reconciliation priorities, what they think, because they know that we know what we're doing now and that what we say is serious. So I don't feel like I think people have grown accustomed to an ever-expanding budget where Republican priorities are never really respected. Maybe we'll get a few more helicopters, all right. But I think for a very transformative budget, they know that this is something that the president is going to pay a lot more attention to. I mean, the first CR that we signed during 1.0 didn't include a single dollar of border wall funding. And it was the largest CR in history. And so Congress just didn't take the administration seriously. We would send over a budget, and it was like, you might as well not.
Right.
It's completely different now.
The appropriations process is completely broken down for decades.
So this is a very serious effort, but it's a very difficult effort. I have high hopes, but the process is irreparably broken. I think members of Congress have slept on their duty to the American people and instead are focused on making sure that they have specific grants to their universities, So it is going to be changing a lot of habits, but I still think that there's reason for optimism.
Fantastic. Mailman, thank you so much for joining the Signal Sitdown. We appreciate it. Thank you so much for tuning into the Signal Sitdown. Before you go, be sure to hit like and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you may be joining us. And please remember to give us a 5-star review. We not only love your feedback, but it really does help the show. Remember, it's your government, and together we'll expose how it really works. See you next time.